You're listening to The Switch. I'm your host, Stephanie Shaw. Hey, welcome to The Switch. I'm Stephanie Shaw. I'm a multi-certified holistic nutrition coach who, after finding no success with the 18 doctors and 2 world-renowned healthcare facilities I visited, decided I needed to make a switch and take my health into my own hands. Now I'm obsessed with you getting hormonally balanced and emotionally aligned. This podcast is about education, empowerment, and simple no-cost strategies you can implement right now. I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about all things health, beauty, clean living, and mindset. Ready to take your mind and body to the next level? It's time to make the switch. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Switch. I am so excited to be here today with Renee Warren. Renee is the founder of We Wild Women and someone on a mission to help inspire and motivate over 1 million women to start their dream business. Renee, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I love this.
It is. Yeah. I'm excited as well. You guys, like before we got on, our cheeks are probably still hurting because we started a business. We did so many things in like the 30 seconds.
5 minutes.
I know. Exactly.
In 5 minutes.
Women.
Right.
Yes, we're powerful women. So let's just dive right in. Tell everyone about you, what you do, your PR agency.
So my name is Renée Warren. I am from Canada. And I actually started a PR agency back in 2011-ish, 2012. Mm-hmm. I was 8 months pregnant with my first son. Yay. And in the same year of starting that business, we had my second son, Noah. So we had 2 babies in the first year. I don't recommend doing that. So I have little Irish twins. Aww. And yeah, they're cute buddies. They're like, no way.
They're 18 months apart. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We were so on the same wavelength. It's crazy. It's so crazy. And we start businesses fast.
Yes.
So I ran this agency, but prior to that, I've always been an entrepreneur. I ran a restaurant for 4 years, paid for all of college with the money I made, started consulting companies. I had an agency acquired. So I've always been an entrepreneur, but I was not drawn to PR. I was like one of the Twitter influencers of the time back in like 2010 in Toronto. And like Twitter was really the start of like this expansive social media, like foray of how you can connect everybody together. Right. Like Facebook was a thing, but it was still kind of shut down to people you didn't know. With Twitter, anybody could find you and follow you. And I was really intrigued in what that meant for business, and blogging was really picking up. And so I was like, this was cool. And then things started to kind of spiral from there. And so I started consulting with bigger companies on how to leverage social media and integrate it into their marketing mix. And then I was moved out to San Francisco, and I was working with startups out there, helping them with content marketing. So this was when like infographics were really getting big and in-depth blog posts, and I was creating this content for startups. And I noticed this synergy between content marketing, social media, and PR, and how it all played together. And I didn't have PR experience. So I met this woman who eventually became my business partner, who did PR for startups. And we started working on these projects together. And one thing led to another. We started this business. And then before we knew it, we had clients from South Africa to San Diego, and we were serving funded technology startups, helping them with their PR. And then I wrote the book about it, it's called Get Covered: How to Craft, Pitch, and Tell Your Startup Story to Get More Customers. And then, I was burnt out after a while. So having those 2 babies in the same year, growing the business, like just crushing it, literally high-fiving my husband in the airports. He was coming, I was going, and vice versa. It just got overwhelming. I said, I need to step back. And so a few years ago, I shut it down and I started focusing on me. And then it's like this great reset of mine. Yeah. Also because of my age, the reset. But now it's like this big rebirth. So I'm taking all of these years of experience in doing marketing, content marketing, and social and PR, and I've kind of disseminated into this incredible program to teach other women in business how to do PR for themselves, this hybrid approach to do it for you, do it yourself. And people and my clients are seeing huge success because it's the agency appeal without the agency price. So they're not paying $10K a month on a 12-month retainer, but they're getting all of the tools and the coaching they need to be successful.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that approach. So you talked a little bit about having the Irish twins. You brought it up and, being a wife, being a mom, running a business, but the fact that you needed to reset. Talk to us a little bit about what that looked like and how, one, first you discovered that you actually needed the reset. Did something happen? And what were your steps to get you back to normal, if we can ever get back to normal after having kids?
No, well, you don't. It's a new normal.
Yes.
So my great reset started a morning. I've actually the exact moment. Mm-hmm. My business was growing and my first son was 2.5 months old. And I was leaving really early because I had an offsite team retreat. We had new members on our team and we needed to just jam on work and strategic stuff for a couple of days. So I was leaving at 6 a.m. and I was backing out of the garage and I ended up backing my new car into my husband's new car. And his headlight ended up on the neighbor's yard. Wow. And in the grand scheme of things, no big deal. No one got hurt.
Yeah.
But the fact that I knew his car was right behind me, my mind wasn't there because I was backing up, but I was looking forward. Mm-hmm. And I started to panic. I was like, oh my God. And I run back inside. Everyone's still sleeping. And I'm trying to talk to my husband, but I couldn't breathe. And he to him, he thought something happened to our son. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and he's like, what's going on? And then finally I was like, I just backed into your car with my car. And he goes, oh, thank God that's it. And then panic started to kick in for him because this he just got a brand new BMW. It was a nice car. And I kind of, gave it a love tap.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at it, I'm panicking now because I had to drive and meet my team who was waiting for me. Mm-hmm. And so all of this, when the day was done, nothing was no one was hurt. I'm so thankful for that. Mm-hmm. But when I came back a couple days later, I told them things have got to change. And remember, my business is only a few months old at this point. And so this is when it all started. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't 2 months later, I find out I'm pregnant with my second child.
Wow.
And I'm like, what's going on? So what we started to do so I know this foundationally to be a successful mother, a successful partner, successful entrepreneur is your relationships with the people that you live with have to be a priority. So my husband and I got on the same page. We started meeting every Friday and we've done this ever since then. And we have a business meeting about our family. And we started going on these quarterly couples retreats where we're completely disconnected.
Wow.
Just like you would do for business. Yeah. And so when him and I were okay, these are the things that I need from you and from me, and we're on the same page, then I could start moving forward.
Yeah.
But then also it was I was getting tugged and just health things were happening. I was depressed, losing motivation, although my business was booming. Finally, one day, the little things that wouldn't have bugged me in the early days really started to get me. And that's when I'm something's got to give. And it was the agency life. Never want to do that again. That's what I was I'm done with this business model. I can still do this work, but it has to be a different approach.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew. And I tell you this, one of my best friends told me when we were talking years ago, she goes, Renee, it feels like you're going through burnout. And I'm no, burnout is reserved for lawyers or financial people on Wall Street that work 80 hours a week. It's not reserved for people like me. And she's you just had 2 babies in the same year of starting a business. How does this not affect you?
Right.
So thinking about that, she goes, I would start looking into this now because burnout can take a while to recover from. It could take years. And I'm oh, guess what? It took me 2 years. Yeah. I waited way too long.
Yeah. But you got there. You saw the signals, you started making incremental changes and you finally got there. That's what I like to hear because some people, it knocks them completely out. It knocked me off my feet for 2 years, in and out of a hospital. So yeah, wow. Burnout is for real. So I'm happy you're on the other side. Real. Yeah. We're off the dark side onto the light.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of it, but it's funny because even like the age, when I think about it, I was in my prime. I was in my prime ages, and it affected me. And I didn't have those freedoms and the liberties I thought I would have at that age because I was so exhausted or run down or overwhelmed when I didn't have to be. But I do know this, there's no greater learning experience than to be living it.
Yes.
And so now when I see these symptoms arising, I'm like, oh, burnt out. Like even this week, I'm like, dude, I'm canceling this thing on Thursday and I'm going for a massage. It's like, because you know.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I got so excited because now it's like, I know I'll never go back because I'm able to recognize very early, okay, this is what it feels like. I just need to zone out. Like I'm going to my chiropractor in 2 hours because that's my happy place. Exactly. She's an intuitive chiropractor. She's my happy place. And it's the same thing. Like I've been doing so much, but I know it's time to stop. So I appreciate and respect the fact that you recognize that. And that for women who are listening and they're thinking, oh, I'm listening because of the PR or the business aspect, I'd like to work with her. You working with women, you can also help them step into their own and then recognize when they may need to take a pause as well. So that would be awesome to work with someone like you. I love that. That is incredible. So we are on a podcast. People are probably listening, but at some point this may be on YouTube and people may or may not be able to tell that you're a 6 foot tall woman.
I am. Yes. I'm 6 feet.
So that's where we come, that's where we're up because I'm like 5'1" and a quarter.
I could rest my chin on the top of your head.
Yes, you can. Bending down, you can rest your chin on top.
Yes. That's funny. I get that all the time.
I love your About page. It talks about you being a Leo, 6 feet tall, spontaneous. It sounds like so much fun. What's the last spontaneous thing that you've done?
Oh, wow. Okay. So when is this episode going to be going live?
Maybe like in May.
Okay.
April, May.
Okay. Maybe I won't share that. So the last big spontaneous thing I did, oh my gosh, this is a really good question. It's going to make me reflect on some terrible choices I've made in my life. I don't know why this keeps coming up, but it wasn't the last, but it was definitely one of the biggest is after university. So college, I bought a plane ticket and went to Australia for a year by myself and then got a working visa and then just started working in Australia. And I know like one of the questions was like, what is something that helped you become the woman that you are today?
Right.
That trip was like the start of that evolution of the person that I was becoming. And that's not the last spontaneous thing because there's been a lot of exciting stuff, but timing might not be right for me to announce it yet. It could have been that maybe 20 minutes ago, you and I started a business. I don't know. That was pretty fun.
Yes.
But there was something about it that was so scary, but like intuition, your gut feeling, you feel called to do something. It was so powerful. I was like, I got to do this. And I went and it was lonely at times, but it was such an eye-opening experience to just be completely on my own.
Wow. That is amazing. And so why Australia?
Well, it was an easy transition, like Canada, Australia, US, same type of culture, so I was like, if I'm going to go anywhere, it needs to be somewhere that is like relatively similar to home.
Yeah.
And it was hot the right time. I left in September, which is like their spring. So I was like, okay. And there's so many magical places to see in Australia. So that's why I wanted to go there.
That is beautiful. A good friend of mine, her in-laws, not her in-laws, her brother and sister-in-law live in Australia. They actually start ministries there. So
okay.
Yeah. So I heard it's a beautiful place to go.
Oh, it's so magical. And the people are so nice. Yeah. I loved it.
That's exciting. So we talked a little bit again about spontaneity, which doesn't always equate to, if you're spontaneous, you usually are fearless. But I want to talk to you a little bit about fear, like what causes you to hesitate and what fear do you see that other women face when they're working in their business?
I see this all the time in myself too. But I mean, that's probably like part of me being a good coach is knowing that I'm either going through it too, or I've survived it, but it's the upper limiting beliefs. It's the fear of failure, but also the fear of success. And I see women that are like, oh, I'm going to go do this thing, but they never do it, or their task list keeps end up being the same tasks over and over again. They never complete anything because they fear that they're going to fail, or they fear that they're going to be successful, which is really interesting. So my fear was of success. I have been so afraid since burnout of getting so successful that I would end up getting into the same rhythm I had which is causing me my burnout.
Right.
And so I don't know why, like I have so much control over this, but I see that with other women. It's like we have this internal thermostat of what we think we deserve because we have like our own worthiness is so low. It's so terrible. So if we think, okay, I'm going to make $100,000 a year because that's my threshold, anything above that, we just throw grenades into our business or grenades into the opportunity because we don't think we deserve anything more than that $100,000.
Right.
And so we work on the thinking of, but why not? And I remember this one story, this woman I coached, she wanted to be a doula and she grew up in poverty, great woman. And I said, one of the coaching sessions was like, what's your dream in like 3, 5, 10 years? And she's like, oh, I want to be making like $45,000 a year. And I'm like, right? Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, why not $1 million? Like, I know what it takes to get to $1 million. It's a lot of work. Right. And she goes, well, that's just selfish. And I go, oh, but is it? She goes, my family, my friends, no one has ever made more than $45,000 a year. And I want to be the example for them. And I go, yeah, but you can make $1 million and give away 950,000 of it if you want.
Exactly.
And she goes, oh, I go, yeah. So that's not selfish for giving away $950,000. Right. And I go, but why? And it's because she grew up thinking like this mentality, right? Not a good relationship with money. And it just like, and the cycle too. It's just, you just stay in that same cycle. But that allowed her to be like, oh, you're so right. I can just give it all away if I wanted to. I'll go, absolutely. You can walk up to that charity right there and you can write a check for $950,000. Yeah. And so I see this all the time with women, with myself, probably even with yourself, is there these like upper limiting problems where it's like, you're at your limit and you don't want to go past it because you fear success or you fear failure.
Yeah. Mine is a fear of failure. So like success in my mind, I have a friend and we're both like, okay, we're going to, whoever gives away $1 million to this, we have a specific place we want to give it to first wins. Like that is our goal. And like, we're both hustling to figure out how we can at some point do that. It might be 5 years, might be 10 years, might be next year. But so that part isn't a problem. The failure part is a problem. I always feel, well, not always, but a lot of times I'll feel like, oh, who am I going to disappoint? Or who have I told that I'm going to do this? And then I don't actually follow through. So you're right. Those limiting beliefs can keep you stuck. So I like that you not only teach people the PR aspect, but teach them the mindset part, because the more I'm in this, the more I figure out like it's 98% mindset. Like
it's like 100%. Here's the thing about PR, like PR and why this is so relevant is that if I say, okay, let's set up all of our assets and let's go pitch Forbes, women are like, no, that's like Forbes is reserved for like Michelle Obama. And I'm like, well, yes, but also you. Yeah. So they immediately limit themselves thinking I'm not worthy of that. I'm like, but imagine that they mentioned you, or imagine you got a feature in Forbes. How amazing would that be? Yes. So like we talk about these limiting beliefs in relation to actually getting media coverage.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you do that with your clients. And I know that you actually, while we go back a little bit, but while your kids were so young, you grew your business to $1 million business. Yeah. How did you do that having 2 small children?
Oh my God. I just crossed my eyes for the people that cannot see that. I say in the first 2 years of me being a parent, I don't remember a thing. It's like, when people go through trauma, they can't, I don't remember those days.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, the first thing we did, and this was like against my mother's wishes. And I know there's a lot of people that raise their family according to how they were raised, which is, I had a great childhood. I always feared disappointing my mother, but we didn't tell her this, but we hired a night nanny. Oh. And my husband is an entrepreneur. He had his business. I had my business. So every Tuesday and Thursday, this wonderful woman named Gina came over from 9 p.m. till like 8 a.m. She took my youngest, Noah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah. So I got 2 nights a week of sleep. And then on top of that, my husband and I, we had our schedules. So I could sleep from 8 p.m. until 1 a.m. with no interruptions from a waking baby. And this is why we bottle fed them from the very beginning. I mean, like I still breastfed, but we did both.
Right.
Because that was important that my husband was involved. And then from 1 a.m. till 6 a.m., he got uninterrupted sleep. So if I played my cards right, I could sleep from 8 p.m. till like I could get a full 8 hours of sleep. Because I know as a human being, the most important thing other than drinking water is sleep.
Yeah.
And if you're going to take that away from me while I'm trying to run a business too, it ain't going to be good.
You don't know how impactful that was, that your answer wasn't a stereotypical business answer or response. Like, I grew my business to $1 million by running Facebook ads and blah, blah, blah. No. You talked about self-care. And that's exactly what you did. When you allowed yourself that time to rest, you allowed yourself the time to be on when it was time for you to run your business. I love that. I love that.
Because then it stopped me from backing into my husband's car again. But think about how productive you are and how efficient you are with your time. If you wake up rested, and you're like, oh, life is good, right? Yeah, you can't be a good mother. You can't be a good partner or business person if you're always tired.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That was a gift to your child. Like people may think, oh, that's selfish. You're supposed to wake up. That was an actual gift to your child because you're not actually awake and there for them if you have slept for 1 hour in a week kind of thing. So yeah, I love that. And
I see this and I look at these women and I'm like, first of all, the hustle culture is dead. Yes, there are seasons in your business where you're working a lot because you're on a launch or something's happening. You got a big project, stuff's happening, but the long-term hustle is not good for anybody.
Yeah.
And think about even you as a leader. If you show up and you're like short, you're snippy because you're tired, it's not good for your team. They feel that energy, right? And as a leader, you have to be the example. You can't be like, oh, don't do what I do, only do what I say, right? And so when I see women are like, I'm taking Fridays off because I'm going to go to the spa, I'm like, you go, girl, because I know what that means for everybody else in your life. Your team, your children, your neighbor, your dog.
You don't keep the dog.
Yeah.
I know. I love that. I love that so much. I also know that you have a favorite quote. What's your favorite quote?
Yes. Stevie Nicks, she says, if you are gracious, you've already won the game.
Stand back. I can't. that was my Stevie Nicks impression.
Yeah. No, don't sing. And don't ask me to sing. I have always loved Stevie Nicks. She said in a quote, she was in an interview a while ago and they asked her why she didn't have kids. Which I'm like, it's kind of a personal question. So I was really leaning into this. And there was a bunch of things she said, but she goes, I wasn't put on earth to become a mother. I was put on earth to create music to make mothers happy. And I'm like, that's it. I love you, girl.
Yeah. Wow. To know that and to step into that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know Stevie had depth to her. Go ahead.
Stevie Nicks. Awesome. She's good.
I just know what she's back through the 80s. So that's all I know.
She's got some good music.
Yeah, she does have some good music. Good.
Yeah.
Music. You talked also about living an integrated life. What does that mean?
So, I mean, COVID, I think, if anything, has been a blessing in understanding what it means to be working from home. So living an integrated life doesn't mean working from home, but it means understanding that work and life there's no like solid line between the two, and that they're fully integrated in the sense where it's like, it's not just the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday anymore, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is in the 30,000 foot view of what needs to get done in a week. You can do it at any point, unless you're like, you have an actual physical location. Right. And so for us, it means like me being okay with working with clients and vice versa. If there's a kid in the background playing on their iPad, Right. And this was like all pre-COVID, because now it's just expected. It's the norm.
Right.
But in understanding there's no line between work and life, and that if you have work you enjoy, it is part of your life. Right. And like life is work. And for us, it meant introducing our kids to all of the fundamentals of business from the very beginning. And like including them on our calls, like including them on like coaching calls, be like, hey, Max, come say hi to Stephanie, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, now we see it and we accept it more thanks to COVID.
Right.
But I think it's just going to be a new norm.
Yeah.
Going forward. I think it's like an integrated life means like every day at noon, I actually take time off. I actually emailed you before this, and I said, I have a hard stop at 10:02 because I have to go to CrossFit.
Yeah.
And that is a non-negotiable for me, because I know I need that to be happy and healthy, but that's part of the integration. Like think about business, even 10 years ago, you would put the CrossFit or the workout aside to get the work done. But what's that extra 10 minutes for us? It's nothing, right? It's like, we are getting the good right now in the conversation, but it'll give me time to actually get to the gym.
Yeah, I know. I totally get that. And that helps. I want women to hear that, because that helps with the crash. So like if you're on the verge of burnout, if you allow yourself that time, you just show up so much better for yourself and for everyone else if you allow yourself that time. So
Exactly. Exactly.
Three more questions for you.
Okay.
Tell us about the book, Get Covered.
Yeah. So I wrote this book a couple of years ago, thinking that at the time my agency had a lot of traffic. We had an incredible blog. We had a big email list. And I'm like, oh, we have such good content. Why don't we just take all of our blog posts, put them in some sort of logical order and make a book of it? Turns out that's not how you write a book. Ended up being a lot of work. But what we wanted to do was to share the knowledge that we had in growing a successful agency and how to do PR with people that couldn't afford it, or even just like companies that had marketers on the team that needed to like refine their skills in PR. So I wrote the book, great experience. And I still refer to a lot of the content in there today. Yeah. It's a good book.
Yeah. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. So you already talked about your switch. So that was that trip to Australia. So that was awesome. So can you leave everyone with one tip, something that does not cost them anything and they can easily implement, that you think everyone should do for themselves?
It's my own quote, and it's consistency is your currency.
I like that.
We tend to give up too soon on a lot of things, and we go very wide on a lot of things because we just want to see what we can catch. But if you're fishing for tuna, you can't be fishing for sharks at the same time, right? So you got to go fish for the tuna. And so in consistency, it could be working out, right? You're going to the gym, but you're only going to be successful if you're consistent about it. In business, you're only going to be successful if you're consistently showing up and putting in the work. I'm not talking about like hustling all the time, but I'm talking about if you've dedicated money to Friday 9 to 2 for your work, you show up. And you launch once and it fails, don't completely pivot and try something new. Relaunch that same thing over and over again. Do the same thing over and over again. Make the extra sales calls over and over again. Most successful salespeople, they get the deal on the 8th call. Everyone else is given up on the 7th. And they say that the extra mile is never crowded because nobody's willing to go there. But you can show up consistently. So that's a piece of advice that I have to give.
Love it. Love it. And we have to get you to CrossFit. So can you wrap it up with telling us how people can get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you can go to Instagram, Renee_Warren. So RENEE_WARREN. That is the best way to find me. Or you can check out my website, wewildwomen.com.
Perfect. Renee, I've enjoyed our time so much. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Everyone, here's to your health. I am so excited for you because you just finished another episode of The Switch, which means you are the fierce person I already knew you were. If you're ready to join an exclusive group of other fierce high performers like you, a group where you can bounce ideas off one another and ask questions, be sure to join our exclusive Facebook community. You can find the link below.